By law, every Indian child has a right to education. But is it worth having? Is it creating a competitive modern state or consigning the country's dreams and ambitions to history? I'm the outsider. This is our motion tonight. Education is sinking India. Speaking for that motion, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon Limited, government advisor, and named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. And with her, Mohandas Pai, former Chief Financial Officer at the IT giant Infosys. He's now Chairman of Manipal Global Education Services. Against the motion, Fraser Mascarenhas, for the last 9 years, Principal of St Xavier's College here in Mumbai. He's also served on numerous education committees and initiatives. Also against the motion, Pramath Raj Sinha. He's Managing Director of 9.9 Media Works, formerly with McKinsey Consulting. He remains an advisor to the company and serves on the board of their Knowledge Centre. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our panel. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, could I ask you, first of all, for your top points in support of the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to focus this debate on the criticality of providing the right education and not merely the right to any education, which is what the government is aiming to achieve. And, I really believe that if you start scaling up and expanding substandard education without focusing on quality, I think we have the really serious situation where education can hurt and hinder economic growth and potentially sink us. And, I really believe that our educational system is flawed. We have fundamental flaws in the way we educate our people. We focus on imparting information rather than applying knowledge. And, as a result of this, we assess students in terms of rote learning and remembering, as opposed to their comprehension skills and their ability to think, query, and, basically apply knowledge. So, to me, these are very, very important aspects to consider. And if we don't fix these flaws, I'm afraid we will create a, pool of graduates who are going to be unproductive and even incompetent. There are many, many damning statistics that can qualify this statement that I've made. In fact, McKinsey and other reports have actually stated that 75% of our engineering graduates, 80% of our MBA graduates, and 90% of our, professional qualified people are simply not making it to the employability cut. And this is a very, very serious situation. Even OECD, we know, ranked India 71 among 73 countries under the PISA evaluation, which was, which stands for the Program for International Student Assessment.
Could you come to a close, please?
These are very, very serious indicators which tells you that our educational system has to undergo radical reforms or it will sink us.
Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, thank you very much. You talk about the danger of education hindering economic growth. Sounds strange when you're the second fastest growing economy in the world. Where is this sinking affecting India that you're talking about?
We as a country need to create and provide employment, gainful employment to 500 million people.
Yes, and you have poverty rates falling. You have the number of rich people rising sharply. You have an ever-expanding middle class. Where is the sinking going on? The rest of the world sees India forging ahead.
Yes, so what I'm saying is that if you have to consider the fact that, almost 12 to 20 million people have to join the workforce every year, are you creating the right kind of jobs, or are you going to create notional jobs?
Well, you are creating wealth in India that wasn't there before, that wasn't there 15 years ago, aren't you?
Yeah, but if
You're creating substantial amounts of wealth.
You are, but it's a small ecosystem. You need to expand it. If India needs to realize its aspirations of being a global economic powerhouse by 2050, then no doubt education is the key to this kind of,
Yeah,
growth.
but it's forging ahead. The indicators, many of the indicators, I know you cited some from McKinsey, but many of the indicators are up. We have the human development report in 2011, which said all-round increase in literacy in the country is taking place.
But I think,
all-round increase in literacy.
But
that's not a good step forward.
Very different. If you look at literacy indicators, they're very poor. Today,
but they're going up.
30%,
they're going up.
No, 30% of class 1 students can't even recognize 1 to 10 numbers. Now, these are not good indicators. So literacy is very different to education.
So the Human Development Report didn't know what it was talking about?
Well, it depends how you measure any indicator. It depends what is important for a country.
Education is reaching parts of society.
Education is very different, Tim, to literacy.
You're halving the number of girls who were excluded from school before. That's gone down between 2006 and 2011. That's gone down by 5%.
So there's no debate that education is very important. But
there's no debate that it's actually getting better.
It may be, but you need
the right direction.
No, you need the right kind of education, and you have to scale it up fast. We don't have the time. We don't have the luxury of time to experiment and grow slowly.
Kira Mazumdar-Shaw, thank you very much indeed. Could I ask, please, Fraser Mascarenhas to speak against the motion? Your top points against the motion, please.
Yes, I think I'm speaking not just as the principal of St. Xavier's College, but I'm also associated with a whole group of schools and colleges across the country which are run by the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus. And I've also been associated with different think tanks at Delhi and elsewhere. I have visited schools and colleges across the country and even abroad at the invitation of the governments of UK, the US, recently Australia. And I think from this experience, I'm very hopeful of the type of education that is taking root in the country. Please look and see that we have fantastic human resource. And the indication of that is all the students from India, or a large majority, are doing exceedingly well abroad in the highest competitive universities. We also have academicians. In any of the top universities of the world, you have Indian academicians. Now, could they reach those levels if they came out from a vacuum? They have had a very good foundation here, and that's the reason why they are not only doing well in universities, they are doing well in business, in entrepreneurship, in research across the world. Secondly, I have been associated with the Government of India efforts. For example, with a group of professors from Mumbai, we met the Prime Minister of our country, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and we talked about, in this global world, by 2020, India will be one of 2 countries to have a surplus workforce. And we said we need to give our students global skills. And his response was very clear. He says, and if we don't do that, imagine the type of social unrest that our country will see. And so he was seized of the urgency and the importance of education. And the government, I think, has been doing its bit to kickstart education and to take it along the right direction.
Could you close, please?
Yes. Finally, I think it's really also the hope of the country that civil society is also getting its act together and supporting education. I would give just the example
Please, no,
of...
we need to come to a close.
Yes,
please.
okay.
Please. Fraser Mascarenhas, thank you very much indeed. I want to talk about this fantastic resource that you say education is. 1.25 million teachers. That's the deficit. That's what you don't have in this country, 1.25 million. How can you say it's a fantastic resource when you're short of so many teachers?
Well, I think, it's very clear that education has expanded because of the expanding population. Overnight, you cannot get those teachers.
How is education expanding when in Uttar Pradesh, for instance, in 1,000 primary schools, they have not one qualified teacher? What kind of education is expanding under those circumstances? Not one qualified teacher.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Because of the expansion, we cannot really man all these schools that have been started. So that part, of course, is the darker side of the story.
You can't man all of them. You can't man many of them, can you? You can't man many of them.
Yeah, but the expansion has been needed, and it has been, you know, all
At the
of a
cost of
sudden.
standards, 60% of grade 4 children cannot read at grade 2 level, according to the World Bank report. 76% of grade 4 children can't do simple division in mathematics.
No, I think every country in the world is experiencing this. For
Well,
example, in the US...
we're talking about India here.
No, but
we're talking about standards in India here. You say it's a fantastic resource.
Would it be possible for me to make a comparison? Because, for example, President Obama, speaking to children in America, said very clearly, if you do not buck up and compete with the Indian and Chinese children, your jobs will be taken by them. In America, it's very clear that they are hyping up the type of results. There are a lot of studies done by Americans
They're not getting the dropout rates that you're getting. 1 in 4 children leaving before grade 5, almost half before grade 8. You're getting huge dropout rates.
That is something we have to address. But I'm talking about the country moving in a direction in which the government has seen that
but it can't
and
move
is investing.
Unless the resources are there. You don't have the teachers, and the teachers you do have are not up to standard, are they?
Yes, but
you have teachers, I mean, we've been reading in the press in Mumbai this week, you have teachers who beat up students. No wonder a large number of them don't even want to go to school.
Well, as long as they're not shooting people, as is happening in other parts of the world, I don't think we are the worst off.
Beating up is okay.
I don't think we're the worst off.
Beating up is fine, is it?
It's not fine.
Beating up's all right.
Fine. We have to address those issues.
As long as they're not cutting their heads off in class, that's fine. All right, Fraser Mascarenhas, thank you very much indeed. Mohandas Pai, could I ask you for your top points in support of the motion, please?
I support the motion that education is sinking India. In the primary school education, we have about possibly 65% of students completing Standard 10. Completing in the sense they go through Standard 10, they do not pass Standard 10. Only about 30% of students go through Standard 12. 17% of children in the age group of 18 to 24 finish college. And out of the 17%, 40% do a course called arts, which almost has no meaning. And then if you look at the education system, in the top 400 universities in the world, as per the Times ranking, there's only one university from India. If you look at the Shanghai ranking out of top 500, there's only one university from India. And if you look at research papers, India produces something like about 40,000 research papers. China is 150,000. America is 250,000. The impact analysis says India's impact is only 3%. China is some 8%. The United States is maybe 25%. So if you look at access to education, number of children completing, education is failing India. If you look at higher education, education is failing India. And if you look at the policies that government has for higher education, about 60% of colleges are run by politicians who do it to milk the public and take money. And if you look at this IIT system, which is God's own system, 82% of people who go to IIT go to cramming schools for 1 or 2 years. And after they finish the cramming school, they come into IIT. In the first year, they don't do well, if you ask the professors. And 500,000 kids sit down for an examination where there are 10,000 seats. No country in the world disappoints 490,000 young people in the brightest years of their life by a very bad system. Even if you look at the IIMs, about 80% of the people go to cramming schools. So we create an educational infrastructure which is very elitist, which is anti-poor, which does not take care of India's need. Yes, like Tim said, India has grown at 7% a year for the last 25 years, but India could have grown at 9% like China. And I won't take China now as an example. Our literacy rate is 74%, China is 97%. China has got 30 million young people in colleges. We got only about 16, 17 million young people in colleges. China has gone ahead twice what India has done. So I believe, compared to a potential, our education system is sinking India.
All right, Mohandas Pai, thank you very much indeed. You say no country is disappointing its young people like India.
Yes.
You haven't looked at Spain recently. The 50% unemployment rates, people between ages 18 and 24. You don't think that is more disappointing than the 8% graduate unemployment rate that you have here in India? Well, Spain, considerably more, isn't it?
Well, I don't believe the 8% is right because the data that government of India collects is not right. But if you look at Spain, they're not starving. They're not on the streets. They're not in Srinagar throwing stones. They're not in Eastern India taking to guns and becoming Maoists. They're not going on the streets and joining politics.
Yeah, but there is also another India that is progressing in world class, isn't there? As we pointed out earlier, the second fastest growth rate in the world. This is a huge achievement. Yeah, something must be fueling that. And obviously education is fueling it because these big industries, like the one you used to work at, Infosys, are finding the people they need. One way or the other, they're finding the people they need.
Yes, Tim, you're right. the big companies are finding people. When I was HR director in Infosys, I hired 150,000 people in 5 years. But to hire 150,000 people,
and you
we had
worked
to
with
look
colleges.
At
You
5
set up
million
Campus
resumes.
Connect,
Yes,
didn't you?
We had to look
you
at
worked with colleges.
We had to look at 5 million resumes. The cost of getting these people in, the cost of training these people, the hassles of training them, the lack of productivity of these people is enormous. So the pain of doing whatever you to do succeed in India is so very high.
I wonder if you're the same Mohandas Pai, who wrote in Forbes magazine earlier this year that India has an enviable higher education infrastructure. You praised the fact that it's got 530 universities, 26,000 colleges, 3.5 are engineering courses.
Yes, I did that.
3 million people in engineering courses. You praised it to the heights. And now it's gloom and doom.
No, I praised it to the height compared to what we have done in the past, but compared to the potential India has of becoming the fastest growing economy in the world, the leading economic power, our education system is sinking India. If education
but more children have access to education than ever before. According to the government in India, in 2008, 94% of India's rural population lived within 1 kilometre of a primary school.
Absolutely.
Not bad, is it?
It's very right. It's taken us 60 years.
It doesn't matter, but it's there. You're a poor country.
It is there.
You're a desperately poor country.
But we are not poor enough that we don't educate our children. 400 million children haven't had education last 60 years.
You're poor enough that you're not feeding 2.1 million children a year who are dying before the age of 5. 1 million of those are dying before they're 6 months old. So you're poor enough that you can't feed 2 million children a year.
Yes, we are poor enough that we don't feed these children, but we are rich enough that we have these IITs where we subsidize 800,000 rupees a year per year so that 100 children die so one child can go to the IIT system. Now, Tim, I want to add another point to this higher education debate. Yes,
briefly,
we have 260,000 young Indians studying outside. It is so difficult to get in the IITs, you can get into an MIT. What kind of system is it in India that you create a college where it's so difficult to get into
It's quite an achievement that they can get in there, isn't it?
It's an achievement
quite an achievement that they get accepted to the top colleges in the world. That's my point.
You got to go to a cramming school and waste 2 years of your life, and when you come out, you're almost brain dead.
All right, Mohandas Pai, thank you very much indeed. Now let me please ask Pramath Raj Sinha to speak against the motion. Your top points, please.
Tim, my first top point is that you have us on the wrong sides. These two people who are actually for the motion
often the case,
have actually benefited from the education system in this country. Biocon and Infosys would actually not have happened if we didn't have a great education system in the country. So it's actually Father Mascarenhas and I who are actually fighting the sinking battle and trying to get us out of this morass by creating and running institutions. I'm here because of my record of being involved with setting up the Indian School of Business. Kiran is on the board, which has within a period of 7 years become one of the top 20 business schools in the world. I'm now involved in creating a university. I'm involved in launching a program called the Young India Fellowship and so on. It's with that context that I'm here. Firstly, I think that we have traditionally had a strong foundation. That point has been made. Are things wrong with the Indian education system? Absolutely. Everything that has been said about what is wrong is absolutely true. We all know it. But I think we need to get on with it. There's a question of looking at the glass half full or half empty. I think we are not sinking. Sinking is too strong a statement to make. I think things have actually bottomed out. Things have turned around. And the reason they have turned around is that we are all sick and tired of hearing about these problems. So there's a bunch of us, and actually that includes all for us of sitting around this table, who are actually going out and trying to fix things in our small way. There are problems with health in India, with corruption in India, with governance in India, with politics in India, with urban infrastructure in India, with agriculture in India. There's problems with everything. And the simple reason for those problems is the massive amounts of population that we have. I think the good news is that we are past that point where we were sinking. I think the initiatives that people are taking in building schools, in Mohandas Pai runs Akshay Patra Foundation, where he feeds 1.5 million kids every day so that they can go back to school. These kinds of initiatives are what give me hope that it is not sinking. Are things wrong? Absolutely. Is it sinking? Not anymore.
Thank you very much indeed. How can you get on with it when you don't have the teachers to get on with it? Pramath Raj Sinha, how can you get on?
I agree that we don't have teachers, but there are equally efforts underway to fix that. So Azim Premji is putting in $2 billion to build Azim Premji University that is only
And how
going to
many
focus.
teachers will that have?
I don't know the numbers.
Well, it's not going to have much to deal with India as a whole, is it? 21.34% of your teachers actually have no professional qualification
I agree.
to get up in front of a class.
Absolutely.
None
but
whatsoever.
Somebody has to fix that problem.
But they're
and
not
therefore,
fixing it. The government has actually allowed them to stand up in class.
So we can keep blaming the government.
With no qualification. Well, who else is going to do with it?
No, the private sector will fix it, and people are fixing it. So Premji is fixing it.
The private sector can fix India by itself.
I think it can't completely fix, but somebody has to, and they are taking a charge to do that. I mean, Father Mascarena has gone ahead and, become an autonomous institution. This is the first college in the university system that has done that. Why? Because he's taking the initiative to do that. We are all fighting the system to make it better.
And where are the centers of excellence that are going to lift India out? You have not a single Indian university in the world's top 100.
You will see it
Not
in the
a
next
single
10 years.
Indian
You will
university
see it in the
top-
next 10 years.
In the 50s, you shone in universities.
It'll turn around.
But you can go on saying it, and you can go on quoting Mr. Premji, but he's not going to save India single-handedly, is he?
No, he's not. But so you don't have the facts. There's Shiv Nadar, who's building a university, Rajendra Pawar, who's building an NIT university, there's Jindal Global University. We are building a Ashoka University. ISB has already proved that model.
The facts are that 3 years ago, 2 Indian states who took part in the international testing system, which is known as PISA, out of 74 regions worldwide, the 2 states managed to beat only Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia.
Tim, you can only go up
those
from
are the
there.
facts.
You can only go up
Actually, you
from
could
there.
be worse than Kyrgyzstan
No, you
next
can
time.
only go up from
no,
there.
you can
Trust
go
me.
down one more place.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? All right. Pramath Raj Sinha, thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, a question to the audience. If you could have your education all over again, would you choose to have it in India or somewhere else? Answers in a moment. Join us then. Welcome back. During the break, we asked the audience a question that goes to the heart of their own educational experience here. If they could go back to school and start again, would they choose to be educated in India or somewhere else? The result is in. 49% said here in India, 51% said abroad. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, it doesn't sound as though everybody thinks the education system is sinking. Quite a lot who think it's done. They'd rather stay here. 49%.
Well, but 51% said they'd like to have it outside.
Not much in it. Not much in it, is there?
I think the main reason why I think that, well, the fact is that there is a huge number of people who would rather be educated abroad. And why is that? Again, I get back to the point. A lot of young people...
Grass is always greener on the other side.
No, a lot of young people today who are educated in India find it very difficult to get the employment which they think they are entitled to.
Okay.
And that's because, again, they haven't made that employability cut in terms of high-end jobs.
All right, Fraser Mascarena's quick reaction to that.
Well, I think...
You feel vindicated by that?
I think, yes. I think it's quite a hopeful sign that people are convinced that not only is the education good, but it is getting better. I think that's the hope, and all the signals are in that direction.
All right, well, we have a lot of young people who presumably are going to argue that point, among many others, over the next half hour or so. The motion before us is that education is sinking India. We're going to take your questions now. If you stand up and when we get a microphone to you, we'll be glad to have a lady in the first row. We'll be glad to hear from you.
I'm Vani Tripathi. I belong to the main opposition party of India, and I work with a lot of young people. My first question to Father is that you were talking about quality education in India. The education minister recently said that there's a 12.5 lakh deficit of teachers in India. Where does that take our classrooms to? Who's going to teach in them? And also to
When you say lakh, could you translate that for the audience abroad?
That's almost...
1.2 million.
Yeah, 1.2 million. Mm-hmm. And also to Mr. Pai and Ms. Shaw, of course,
let's just take that question first.
Sure.
Fraser Mascarenhas.
Well, I think, just as there's an expansion of schools in India, if you look just at Mumbai, there is an expansion of teacher training colleges. So you have to give the country time. This expansion has just started. It does not happen. Teachers are not prepared overnight.
Father, are we just looking at the urban cities of India and thinking that's where India lives? India lives in its villages. It lives in small district centers of UP, Bihar. Uttar Pradesh was a question that Tim Sebastian spoke about. Are we only looking at the big cities of India, or are we actually looking at where India lives, which is called Bharat, which is probably another part of the country?
I'm happy to say that the organization that runs St. Xavier's College has just opened a junior college in Maharashtra, fully funded by the government of Maharashtra in a remote tribal area. And we are not the only one. There's a whole series of these things that the government of India is and of Maharashtra is supporting. We have, for example, at St. Xavier's College, 25% of our students from the backward groups of Indian society, fully paid for by the government. Don't you think we are also then extending ourselves to that section of Indian society that most needs education?
All right, Mohandas Pai, I'm going to bring you in here.
The point I want to make is, let's not look at small centers of excellence. Xavier's is excellent. They start 10 schools is okay. India needs 2 million schools. Now, we got maybe 100,000 schools, they're very good. India's got 41,000 colleges, 5,000 colleges are very good. What about the rest? We must look at the country as a whole. We have 1.2 billion people. We're not a small country. We're not a country where we can have only 15 IITs with 10,000 students. We need 100 IITs, 100,000 students. So let's look at it on scale.
I think, we have got used to that press button society. You press a button and you get things out. No, with education and with everything that is deep, it has to be built up.
Yeah, but the question is it going in the right direction or the wrong direction?
In the right direction, I think so.
And one very little
Let me just hear back from the questioner briefly.
Yeah, just one very small question to Mr. Pai and to Ms. Shaw. If education is sinking India, is reservation a part of it?
No.
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 Is reservation a part of it?
Reservation in education a part of it? That is what I wish to know.
No.
You mean
Not
quotas here, don't you? You're talking about quotas.
Yeah, not
quotas.
at all. I
Not
do
at all.
not believe that's the reason. I really believe it's the fundamental flaws that I talked about. We are not developing problem solving as the way of teaching people to query, to have a curiosity-driven learning. We are just getting into imparting information, like I said. We are creating a breed of students who cannot solve problems, who cannot add value. If you cannot create that kind of education, we are not going to be able to grow our economy.
Bishop Cotton School in Bangalore, where you went, did pretty well for you?
Did very well for me, but as Mohandas Pai said, that's a very small number of schools that do that.
And Tim, there is a solution. Imagine we give a tablet with preloaded software and education material to 200 million children. What happens to them?
They play
get
games.
Empowered.
They play games.
No, they
on
don't
the
play
tablet.
games. They
Even
get
if
empowered.
they play games, they learn.
They learn through
Okay,
games.
all right.
That's actually what the government
So
is doing.
we need innovation.
Akash has come from the government.
Akash is very bad.
Tablets for everyone. Gentleman in the first row. Yes, in the pink shirt.
A student comes to a college to get a job. So my question is, who is the onus for employability on? If it is the educational institution, are they failing to manage?
To do what they should do. Fraser Mascarenhas.
I think we have merited this reputation of only rote learning in our institutions. That is not something that I would want to deny. But the point I'm making is that there has been a turnaround. Take, for example, colleges across the country that have become autonomous. We were held in the stranglehold of the university and a very common system of setting syllabi, designing courses and taking evaluation. Not anymore. St. Xavier's College, for example, is, along with many other colleges which are autonomous, implementing the Bloom's taxonomy, which is talking precisely of doing, giving those type of critical skills, creativity, application, which our country needs.
But there's
so
no
my point is that there is
there's
a
no
turnaround.
employability, is there, when firms in Bangalore, outsourcing firms in Bangalore, are having to outsource themselves to countries like the Philippines and Nicaragua because they can't get the Indian graduates to speak and converse as they want them to?
Or are they finding graduates who are cheaper there?
No, it's not a question of money. They can't find the people to do the job.
Not cheap.
But Tim, how did they get here in the first place, right? I mean,
Mohandas Pai, you want to say something?
No, Pramath, again, we're coming, how do they come there? You know, we've gone 50% ahead. We could have been 100%. We must speak between potential and reality. Reality is pretty good compared to the past. Yes, we've done well. But what is the potential? Look at China. China and India started same time in GDP in 1978. India is today 1.8 trillion. China is 7.1 trillion. Why? 98% literacy in China. Investment in education. Everybody's got a primary education. Education system is working better. Much more research.
I want to come
Look
back.
at the potential and reality.
I want to come back to the questioner. You said you were a student 2 years ago.
Yes.
How employable were you when you left? Do you have a job now?
Thankfully, I was a student of St. Xavier's College, so the kind of
So it's payback time.
No, not at all. There is a huge gap between the premier institutions of this country and a large number. And the problem is that corporate India is not recruiting only from the. In fact, it's extremely expensive to recruit only from the premier institutions.
And
so
they're not enough.
It's not enough. The numbers are not adequate. So while there are definitely some institutions which are really top,
somewhere underlying all of this, Tim, is the assumption that the government has to do something about this.
No.
The country is not the government. We all have to do something about it. And the moment we start to look at the glass half full, then I think we will do something about it.
Education is regulated by the government. And I think that's
too much is made out of that.
No, but
too much is made out of that. Actually, it's quite easy to start a university today. If you actually go to a government...
It's not about starting the university.
It's about running the university.
It's about running the university.
Even running the university, I'm sorry, is not that difficult.
Pramath.
It's not
about the curriculum, it's about the teaching system,
we have a
entrance exam.
We have a 19th century framework for a 21st century education. Our universities do not have autonomy. There's corruption in the education system. And people are trying to fleece many young people by making sure only politicians get the license. If you're a good person and you want to start a university, they will not give you a license. It's a rotten system. It is failing India.
All right, lady in the first row.
Hi, my name's Leena Asher, and I run a chain of private schools, Kangaroo Kids and Billabong High. And my question is to you. I understand we don't have to point at the government for anything and everything. And I'm lucky enough to have had half my education here, half in Australia, and came back here to try and make a difference to the rote learning sort of style of education. But no sooner do entrepreneurs like us sort of come up and start doing things, and the government comes and axes us in some way or the other. What I'd like to ask you is, why can't the government just completely allow privatization of education and universities, just like they have done the airports and other things that have benefited from it? Tax us, don't let us run as trust, tax us properly, and invest that money in education.
And that is happening. And that is happening in some states.
But the point is, is the government part of the solution or part of the problem? She's suggesting it's part of the problem.
I think she is right. I have faced all of the problems that people are talking about here. All I'm saying is that even within the country now, there is a rethink on a lot of this. I can give you an example where we are setting up a university in Haryana. We went with an application to the government. We have complete freedom to do what we want. We did not have to pay any money to anyone. We were completely supported in setting up the university. And as long as you are doing it not for profit, and you are doing it for the right reasons, people will support you. Now, it's not happening across the country. It is happening in some states.
Is there this rethink? Do you see this rethink taking place? I'll come to you in a moment.
But I think we need radical reforms. We are here talking about just starting up universities. I think it's much more serious than that. We've got monumental challenges in education. You just mentioned the deficit of teachers. You've talked about this huge deficit of every possible aspect that is required to sustain education, which we are not addressing.
I'm going back to the question here.
Exams.
Have you heard anything that comforts you?
No.
No, okay. All right, from either side. From either side. Okay, gentleman in the front row, we'll take your question, please.
So my question, sir, is this, that when do you think that by deregulating higher education, the money for the government which is going into higher education should really go into primary and secondary education?
Sure.
And that is not happening.
Yeah.
And the other thing which the panel has completely missed is that there's no talk about vocational training and skill building.
Okay, Pramath.
And that is missing completely.
I think that deregulating is, of course, the answer. Privatizing education is, of course, the answer. But I'm a practical guy, and I can tell you, looking at the politics of this country at this time, it ain't going to happen in the near future. It's just not going to happen. It's a pipe dream to expect that the government will allow private education regulated private education to happen in this country. So I'm not defending the government's position. I'm against that position. I think privatization is good and it should happen, and government should focus on primary, but it's not going to happen. So what do you want to do about it? We can come here and keep debating this. Are we sinking? I think we are not sinking, because some people, and a lot of people in this country, are having a realization that it is hopeless to expect that the government is going to change anything, and that others of us have to go and do something about it.
So you just bypass the government?
Absolutely.
I would focus on, the potential that my friend spoke about and the type of efforts that are being made. Take, for example, the Teach for India initiative here based on...
Father, potential in reality, you need 10 million.
This is the beginning.
Please don't speak at once. Please don't everybody speak at once.
This is the beginning of a rash of initiatives. This is not... I gave you one example and you're saying that's the only example. I don't think that's fair.
Father,
we have a huge... and this is precisely tackling that... the population that requires it, because those are the underprivileged.
Father, if we believe that a group of well-meaning individuals can change this country, it's not going to happen. We need change in policy. We need the opening of the system. We need thousands of people to come into the education system. For example, vocational education. 10 million children require vocational education every year. 1 million get it. 9 million are untrained. No country wastes its human resources and refuses to invest in its children like India.
In the 12th plan, there is a huge initiative now just starting on skills
60
education.
years we lived on hope that we get a better India. We've not got it yet.
Okay.
We've got to live another 100 years.
All right.
Father, we want it tomorrow.
Lady in the center there, yes.
Hi, my name's Kanika Kosa. I actually am from Teach for India. My question is to both of you. We are expanding, but the quality of education we're expanding with, is it staying the same? Is it deteriorating? And what about primary education? I work for a 4th grade classroom in a BMC MCGM school. And morning shift, we have 2 teachers for 8 classes. Half of them sit in the staff room. They don't teach. We have 2 Teach for India fellows in the afternoon shift that take care of 4 classes. I myself have 60 kids. The quality of education, we're expanding, but our quality is not staying at the same level or increasing.
Are the children learning anything?
In some classes they are, where we can give extra time and more effort and individual attention.
But in general?
No. I walked into a 2nd grade classroom. More than half of them don't even know 1, 2, 3.
All right, Pramath Sinha, that's not bottoming out, is it? That's not bottoming out. That's heading further down, isn't it?
No, she is a symbol of why it is not bottoming out. All of the people sitting in this room have to go out and start teaching in our schools. And we can again go back to the government and say...
What are you saying? She's not doing enough?
Oh, I'm saying she is. I'm saying she is the hope. She is a symbol of why we are not sinking anymore.
And she's telling you that the hope isn't there.
But my point is, there are not enough of us. And
I agree.
the people that are pre-existing in these schools, they're teachers, they're BMC teachers and MCGM teachers, that there's no teacher training for them, and the teacher training that they have.
Yes.
Is not good enough,
but don't
because
you think,
they come back to the staff room.
Don't you think the government has recognized that, and now the BMC is asking private parties to take charge of these schools? Precisely, that is being recognized, and it is being addressed.
Agreed, but it's not happening at the rate of our expansion.
Yes,
and you're not noticing any change at your
we
level.
don't have the resources to expand. We need to expand, but we don't have the resources.
Look,
this is a proposal that's just come.
The people who have to run the education system, who are paid by your taxpayers' money, have to do the work. Now, you are doing a great job. I salute you. But you are a poor substitute for the system not working. You are a quick aid, a quick fix. But that's not the fix we want.
Exactly.
We want the people to work there, and that's why we say education is sinking India. It's not working.
It's the quality of education that we are talking about, and which is what you said.
Exactly.
Okay, gentleman in the first row.
This is Agnello Rajesh here. I'm also into the business of promoting skillful education. Apart from that, a lot of economically challenged students, but academically brilliant students, find cost of the education as a deterrent to take professional education. What can be the solutions in the combination of the government and the corporates coming together?
Kira Mazumdar-Shaw, why don't you try that one?
Well, I think there are many models of doing that, but I think if education is going to be such a driving force for economic development and economic growth, I think government has to start investing in education. And therefore, PPP models will work in this kind of a model.
Public-private partnerships.
Public-private partnerships.
Government spending is a big example to the past history of this country, that government spending doesn't reach to the last mile. Yeah. A lot of money gets filtered and it doesn't reach the last mile. So how can there be a marriage between the government and the corporates and the private entities?
Sector has to you have to create a model where private sector puts the checks and balances, where you have the government investing in scholarships.
Something good is happening in this country where even the corporates are an education system. For example, Infosys. Even after the student finishes his education, in Infosys he's trained for 6 months to 2 years. So why that need is to be there? That need should not be there. He should be job ready right the day he finishes his professional education.
I agree. I agree, and that's the pain of running business in India. I've not met a single company, and I probably met about 1,000 in the last 5 years, who has said that the people they hire from college meet the needs.
But
and
you
they have to
expect
put
to
money
do
into
some
training.
vocational training, don't
Expect to do some, maybe 20%, 30%, not 100%. And not spend enormous amounts of money and take away management time. Industry could have grown maybe 50% more if they were ready, if the people who joined them were ready. That is the challenge.
The point about the model, there are several models that are already emerging in this country, and this is a solved problem worldwide. Of course, the government has to invest, but if the government can allow us to charge people who can pay and use that to subsidize people who can't pay, that's how this model works everywhere. And this is starting to happen.
All right, lady at the back, right at the back.
It has been debated that we are producing rote learners and crammers. But isn't that what the corporate is asking right now? Because we have all the back-end jobs. We have all the outsourced job where we don't actually encourage innovators and entrepreneurs.
Is that what you're asking for in the corporate sector?
I think you're very mistaken, because the initial years, you're taught to work and have a process and have the rigor, and later you're taught to be innovative. And nobody prevents innovation. It's left you to be innovative.
No, when you actually take up innovation and entrepreneurship, you want to start something new, you actually shunned away.
No, you're not. You just have to leave the company and start yourself.
Yeah, there are 100
That's the
problems
same
starting
thing, isn't it?
yourself.
No,
That's the same thing.
But companies want it to work. See, let's not mistake what companies want. Everybody in the company cannot become an entrepreneur, right? You got to sell your idea as a person with the innovative idea. Others have got to buy the idea. If you've got an idea, unable to sell the idea, you can't blame the company.
But Mohan, she has a point, and I'll tell you what the point is. The point is, we just started this program in the liberal arts and humanities, right? The fact is, corporates in this country only want engineers and MBAs. That's all they care for. And I think you have to put some of the responsibility for that on the companies in this country also, that they value only a certain type of education. And therefore, we've seen a mushrooming of engineering and business schools who only provide that kind of rote learning. So because they think all we need to do is create an engineer and this guy will get employment. Around the world, people are not so obsessed with just hiring engineers and MBAs. For lots of jobs, you hire people with history, political science, international relation, English majors, including in England.
And then teach them something completely different.
Pramath, I want to also mention that our sector, which hires a lot of scientists, we give a lot of weightage to innovative thinking.
That's good.
For us, creativity and innovative thinking is paramount.
That's why we are not thinking.
We find that that's where we have an issue.
And how much of that are you finding?
We are finding a huge challenge finding that kind of talent, because the kind of education we have here is not curiosity-driven. It is not project-driven. It is about rote learning, and, it is really about just acquiring information. They're not able to apply their knowledge. That's the big challenge we find.
All right, lady with the sunglasses, yes.
My name is Preeti. I'm a professor with St. Andrews College in Mumbai. I'm observing that we only are talking about the employability quotient since we started this debate. In my classroom, my target in front of my 100+ students is not only giving them a job. We have so many other aspects to take care. So I want to know panel's views on this.
So you educate people to know as well as to do, is that right?
Yes, sir. We are talking about just employability, economy, percentage, GDP. But then there are so many other things when I deal with my students. I have so many other things in my curriculum, in my classroom happening. So it is not only about translating into GDP or economy or something.
Fraser Mascarenhas, you'd agree with that?
Yes, I think so, because it's quite clear that in the global economy, you cannot teach in our educational institutions exactly the skills that they will be needing as soon as they get into the job, because the job is changing so quickly. What we need to do is precisely what this lady is talking about: give them life skills, give them critical thinking, give them the type of creativity that will help them to solve the new problems that are constantly changing. And that's the effort that is going on in many of our institutions, which the government is backing and funding.
But Kiran Mazumdar...
Yeah, but when we talk about employability, we're not just talking about jobs in industry. We are talking about self-employment. We are talking about teachers. We are talking about entrepreneurship. There is you've got to gainfully employ yourself. That's what we're talking about. So yes, your holistic learning is very important. And I agree with you that it shouldn't just be focused on getting jobs at companies and specific jobs. Now, there's a big difference between, again, education and vocational training. I think you raised that point. Vocational training is about, performing tasks, and education is about solving problems. So you've got to have both. We need, nurses, plumbers, engineers, just as much as we need, economists, doctors, and teachers, and what have you. So I think you do need both types. And I think what you're talking about is it's not just focused towards getting a job in an industry.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the point of the proceedings. We're going to vote now on the motion that education is sinking. If you want to vote for that motion, the side represented by those on my right, you're going to need to press button 1. If you want to vote against the motion, the side represented by those on my left, it's button 2. Whichever button you want to press, please do so now. All right, the vote is in. The audience has spoken. 70% of you say education is sinking. 30% of you say it isn't, so the motion has been resoundingly carried. Let's just take a look at the result before the debate. The vote then was 54% in favour of the motion and 46% against. So there has been a 16% swing in favour of the motion during the course of the debate. Quick reaction, Fraser Mascarenhas.
Well, I think, we need to, in India, accentuate the positive and not just harp on, the mistakes that have been made. We have to accentuate the positive and to acknowledge the good that is happening. I think that is showing that we are in a direction that will be positive.
Pramath Rajsinha.
I'm where Father is. I think I have no disagreement with all the problems that have been pointed out. I think we are all seeing that every day. I think what is the solution? To constantly expect the government, of course the government has to do it. I am only of the view that we have to look at the glass full, half full, and actually start doing something about it than constantly pointing the finger at the government.
Okay, Mohandas Pai, you probably don't take much comfort in this victory.
No, I would say that as Indians, we must stop living in a make-believe world where everything is goody-goody. Accept reality. Reality is not good. Work to change reality and make sure education takes this country forward. We have to invest, we have to change policy, create an open system, and every child should get educated.
Kiran Mazumdar.
Well, I agree with Mohan. I think basically if we want to realize our demographic dividend, then education holds the key. There's no debate about that. But it is the quality of education. It is the right education. It is not simply the right to any type of education, because I think we need radical educational reforms starting with
facing how bad things actually are.
Absolutely, and we need policy changes, and we need a lot of these experimental models that will help us to scale up very rapidly.
All right.
And I personally believe technology holds a very important key to that.
Okay, all right. Well, we've come to the end. My thanks to the panel. Thank you very much indeed. To the audience, both here in the studio and around the world. Please keep in touch with us via our website, www.theoutsider.tv. Till the next time, from the Indian city of Mumbai, good night.